Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be providing a market analysis update on Harmony One. I'll be covering the longer term time frame, some key horizontal support and resistance levels, as well as the Bitcoin ratio pair, which I think is very important. So if you guys enjoy the content, please do consider leaving a like and subscribing. Also consider checking out our sponsors over at ftx.us. You can check them out in the link in the description below. And if you sign up with my referral code SNOWYCrypto, you can get a 5% discount on your exchange fees. All right, so let's dive into the charts here. Really, I just want to cover first, the fact that we're moving back above this very key level of resistance around 2.5 cents. So that is a great sign to me. And ideally, I want to see the weekly come back and close above this level because of how important it is in terms of resistance. So we saw this being a key rejection back in June of 2019. This was a multi-year high for Harmony One. And essentially, when we broke above it here in February, we came back down and we retested it as support. Okay, so we had the retest, flipped it into support, and then from there we had the mania blow-off phase. So this is just a key level just because of how prices interacted with this being a macro high back in 2019 and then a key support flip here in 2021. And you can see how we're starting to move back above this after having a few weeks consolidating below this. So this is a good sign, and ideally we want to see the weekly come back, close above this, and hopefully we can see some consolidation, and that would really start to convince me that we're flipping this back into support, which is a good sign. And then if something like that happens and we get some continuation higher, then I would expect the next logical level of resistance around 3.5 cents. So going back to the same time frame in 2021, this was the level that we rejected. This was the high we formed. We came back down, retested this as support. We took out that high and then we continued on higher. So this is going to be the next level of resistance if we're continuing the uptrend. So I think it's logical to expect some sort of rejection off of that point. At least in the short term, we could obviously reclaim it a little bit later down the road, but I think we're going to be expecting some sort of rejection on our first retest, just considering how historical and important this level is. And it's just, to me, I don't think we can reclaim it on our first attempt. Now, that's not to say we can't consolidate a little bit longer and then flip it later down on the road, but to me, it's just such a key and strong level of resistance that I'm going to be watching out for in the event this relief rally continues up higher. All right, so now we want to switch over to the Harmony One Bitcoin pair, which I think is really important to watch because, you know, with altcoins, you do want to see them outperforming Bitcoin, because if you're holding an altcoin and it's underperforming Bitcoin, you're taking on more risk, so your risk to reward ratio is pretty low relative to Bitcoin. So what we want to see here is Harmony One outperform Bitcoin. That would mean this chart is moving up. You can see Harmony One has been in a downtrend against Bitcoin and has been underperforming for essentially this 24-week pattern, going down at a pretty quick pace. And now we're starting to come back up to this level here where we're at resistance again. And this is a very key level. It's around the 120 Satoshi level. If we just go back to basically 2019 and 2020, we can see this was a very key level of resistance. So we had the first break below it back in July. We came back up in August, retested it, flipped it into resistance, and then we continued lower. We came back up, retested it once again, formed lower lows, one more retest, and then we had the final capitulation lower down into December. Okay, so this is a very key level. You can see that we're coming back up to this, and we could potentially be flipping it into resistance if you see the weekly come up to this level and reject off of it. Now, in something like this, if that were to happen, I would expect the longer term trend to continue down, and that would not be a good sign for Harmony. So it's something to watch out for. We don't, obviously we don't have to reject here. We could ultimately come back above this and then hold it, flip it into support. But to me, when I look at this, this is the level on the Harmony One Bitcoin pair that I want to see reclaimed on a weekly time frame. And a weekly time frame means that we're having multiple and consecutive weekly closes above this level. Again, it's around 120 Satoshis, but it's more or less a range, as you can see, going back to 2019 and 2020. All right, so I want to switch over to the monthly real quick, just because I think it has a pretty clean chart behind it. You can see this level here, similar to the level that we had back in 2020 and 2019, but on a monthly standpoint, this is where the monthly closes were kind of stopped at. So you can see we had the wicks going above these in 2019 with, you know, two candles trying to get back above this, both closing below it. And then you can see a similar thing here back in 2020, candles having wicks above this. Ultimately, the closes failed, couldn't get back above it. So then we flipped that into resistance, came all the way down. So you can see how that longer term trend, we might be starting to shift it, bouncing off of this level as support. So that is a good sign. It's showing to me that Harmony One does have some support here against Bitcoin. And if we were to continue bouncing off from here, that would mean Harmony One is outperforming Bitcoin. It's got relative strength, and that's what we want to see with our altcoins. Now, consider that if we switch back over to the weekly, there is a very strong resistance level ahead of us, which is essentially this 180 Satoshi level. All right, so this is where we were bouncing off of all these candles held as support back in 2021. You can see we retested this several times. One time here in April, retested it in July, and then one more test here in August. So in the event that we're continuing and sort of bouncing further up from here, that is the level that I'm looking for as some support, as some potential resistance where we might expect some sort of rejection. But in the long term, if we're actually reclaiming this, whether it be in a few weeks, in a few months, whenever that happens, if we're reclaiming this level and doing that, something like this where we flip it into support, this is a very bullish sign that I'm going to watch out for. Now, obviously, that is much further down, much further up from here. You know, that would represent at a minimum a 60% price move to get back up to that level. And that's not even considering the fact that we would have to flip it into support. So again, it's something to watch out for in a few months if that happens and develops. But clearly that is much further down from here. We could very well have some sort of rejection before actually doing that on the longer term time frame. But essentially that is what I'm looking for, the reclaim of this level for a longer term trend shift from this bearish downtrend we started in January. And essentially once we get that longer term trend shift, it would mean to me that Harmony One is going to be outperforming Bitcoin. A lot of strength would be sort of given to that USD pair. So that is my longer term analysis on Harmony One. I hope you guys did enjoy. Once again, you can check out our sponsors over in the description below, ftx.us, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I will see you in the next one.